let's talk about planning a website. Everybody these days seems to want one. Everybody has one. Maybe you have one and want to update it. The one thing that people generally don't talk about are like how to actually do it. Um, so let's take a look at some things within you know getting a website you need to really talk about, because jumping in saying I want a new website and hiring somebody, not necessarily the best way to go about it. If you have someone you've trusted for years, there's always exceptions. But, first and foremost, hey, I want a new website. Great. Unless you or someone in your team knows, on your staff, that is, knows how to do it, um, what's my budget? Because, if you can afford $100, well, maybe start scouting for a college kid who's looking for experience. If you want a really robust website, you need to start figuring out how much money can you really dedicate. Even if you have someone on staff, you're still paying them a wage. How long is it going to take them, and how much other work are they not going to get done? So what's my true cost of this website? And is it cheaper to outsource it? Most websites, are actually outsourced. I mean, people do try to do, the GoDaddy templates and have that generic, thing a lot. But if you're serious about having a real web presence, it requires a real budget. Um, you know, it's not just about a web page. What you don't see listed on this, because we're talking about planning a website, are things like social. So budget is a huge thing. Don't start it, or at least don't expect a lot if you don't have, a reasonable budget. I can't really narrow down reasonable because it really depends on the size of the site, the features of the site, on who you're going to need. If you mainly need a designer, because you want a lot of stuff up there, and you're going to use something like WordPress, so you just need a WordPress expert to get it to look like you want, and you're to teach you, and then you're going to paste all your content. It may not require as much, but ultimately you need to know some things, and obviously to know budget, there's some other things we got to talk about here. Timeline is a big one. If you're going to do it quickly, plan on a bigger budget, because the more time you have to, do quickly, more than likely someone's having to, take time away from other projects. Someone else might have to come in as an outside provider to gather those materials. If you have a product line and don't have a catalog of digital images, someone might have to create that for you. So timeline's a big deal. I mean, a lot of websites take 6, 12 months more. They might have multiple versions of it, so that way they can deliver a first step, and then continue on out there. So there's a lot. Um, let me, I'm gonna get a little pen here so I can draw, not have you be so bored. So the budget is really tied to everything here. Everything loops back to your ultimate budget. Internal, external. If you have someone internal, great. Do they have all the skills to do what you want? But ultimately, you pay them a paycheck, comes back to your budget. External, I, you know, firsthand can tell you there's a ton of people who can design and develop websites. Some are really good, some are really bad, some are very reasonable in cost, some are outrageously priced. Um, you know, so if you're going to go external, you have to go to your timeline of finding the right person and doing bidding so you can put together a budget. So by the time we're done, you're going to pretty much see almost everything come back to budget. Graphics, that might seem a little misleading. Graphics is not just, your pictures with the camera, so to speak, of your location or your, the staff, headshots, as it were, if you want to do the staff. But yeah, it is. It is, staff photos, pictures. Do you want to do video? Really bad video camera here. Boom mic. Yeah, well, video camera. Okay, video camera if you believe me. Um, Whether it is, your product catalog, um, there really is a lot beyond that even. It's, do you have a logo? Do you have buttons that need to be created? Um, every little part of a website at some point, unless it's a solid color square, and even sometimes squares you have to make them the right size, falls under, graphics, and even partially under content. Content I tend to look at as more text, but it can also come back up here a little bit as well. So if you have an existing one and you have a lot of this put together, it may not be that big a deal. But if you're switching platforms, your entire product catalog might have to be re-inputted. So again, back to budget. So just keep thinking about that as we continue to talk. We're going to go now up to features, which, that's interactivity. Do you want someone to be able to, click a button and it then takes them to, a different catalog that they can, sort and browse, live? Because catalog, products and everything, I mean, a lot of people want to search for it, searching. How deep do you want them to be able to go? How finite of fields, is it each field, or is it just general keywords and it's gonna, like let's say you sell shoes. Well, if they type in shoes, theoretically your entire catalog is going to come up. So they're going to be able to search by size, by color, by material, category of shoe, bowling, running, walking, basketball. You got to think of all that stuff because that's part of the overall build. It's a feature, function. Forms kind of goes along with features. There's a lot that happens within forms that make them better. If someone just knows how to do an HTML form, if I can even write HTML right now, they're going to have their own email pop up to send that email off. Really tacky these days. So it's going to have to be someone who can script it, or it's going to need to be part of an internal mechanism to your website that processes it for them and sends directly to. Because if someone's on, a public computer, or if they're on their phone, it's inconvenient. A lot of Gmail, Hotmail accounts, they're just not made to work right with them. So it really is important that your forms and your features are able to be done. Again, I usually go back to catalog when it comes to features because that's such a huge part of anything. I mean, being able to run it dynamically and update it through, if you want to be able to update stuff yourself through an admin, well, there are what are called, CMSs, which are content management systems, like WordPress. There's Drupal, and there's Joomla. All can be learned by people with ranging skill sets. True development requires a true developer. You're not going to find someone who, yeah, I'm a WordPress expert. Okay, well, I want you to develop a module that allows them to sort my shoes by any type, but I also want it in a carousel and whatever else you've seen on a website that you would love to have on yours. You need to have all these features. A carousel, by the way, would be like an image gallery to where the focus image is bigger. So let's say this is it, and then you see the other things behind it, and it looks like it's going in a circle. There's different forms of these little carousels. So as you slide to the right, then this one would then get bigger, and this one gets smaller. That sort of thing. Or where they can drag and they slide it, and it flips through. That's a common carousel. Article sliders is another big thing. Where you have the little dots or some sort of navigation, and then you have your picture. You might have a little slide out text box here. Those are features. Slideshows feature. Things like that. You really got to figure out what you want, because each one of those takes more time. To date, being end of August 2012, most of these are not built in to any of the CMSs. You can find plugins, but if you want it to look and function a particular way, you might have to have someone take one of those plugins and learn how to manipulate it, or maybe rewrite it, or they might have to write it from scratch to get exactly what you want. So again, these, well, not so much forms. Forms you can find ways around, but features is a huge part of what your costs might end up being. Other part to consider, most people who launch new websites consider some advertising to get more traffic. Hey, we just launched a new website. Come take a look. It's awesome. And that's something to consider. Are you going to be doing pay-per-click ads to get people to see the new website? Things like that. Ranking. If your search engine rank is good right now, you want to make sure that your new site's going to be optimized so that way your new site ranks as good. And most of the time you will have a temporary decline in your ranking when you switch sites. As it reindexes, it might improve, it might decline, it might stay down. You might have to find that, oh well, because we like the more condensed text version, we just don't have as many keywords. So you're going to have to find a way to either develop more pages or somehow get more, keywords back in there to get your ranking up or back up. There's also link building. Let me write that out there. The links, if you change websites and go to a CMS, all your old links may not work anymore. You may have to do forwards in order to get that content back. Again, back to budget. So, with all this said, I don't ever recommend someone just saying, I want a new website, can you do it? Because you're going to end up either getting something you hate, not getting anything, and whether you start spending money right away or not, it could be a bottomless pit. If you've ever seen the movie The Money Pit, although be it very old at this point, be like that house that just never ever stops falling apart. Well, a website can be a lot like that. You don't plan it, you don't take the time, you don't quality test it. It's not going to work. Realistically, you want someone who can, work it all up and launch it, and then be able to test and be available right after, because you're going to have bugs. I guarantee you're going to have something, whether it be the text isn't right, whether it's, a submit button isn't working. You're going to want to be able to test this and fix those right away. So, if you have someone doing this, one day a month as their side job, well, guess what? They may not be able to get to it till next month, that day that they work, to fix your issues. But someone who does it all day during the week, they may cost more, but if you need that attention, you might have to deal with it. So hopefully I've bombarded you with enough to think about. I know for people I've designed for, I try to get them to think about this as much as possible, because midway through is not the time to start going, oh yeah, can we not for the budget you got? No, sorry, we can't do it for $500. We can't do it for that $1,000. You're talking about features that are going to take a month to develop, and add a zero to the back of that. So hope this has given you a lot to think about. Hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully I didn't bore you. Please take a look at my other tutorials.